Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
I'm going to call the meeting of the Wyndham Northeast Supervising Union Board to order at 6:31. First off, are there adjustments to the agenda? And there are a number of them because this was sort of pro forma. The first one being introductions, which we always do as a new three. The second is going to be, we have appointments on there, not yet, so we'll put appointments.
We do at number 8. We're asking if we can move that up.
Okay, well, we'll move it as the new 4, I guess at this point. We also want to have an executive session because we want to talk about negotiations, and we also want to talk about a contract or a potential legal matter. So those are the
one other is help me, Stacy.
Oh, the special education procedures.
Special education.
all right. And I'm wondering, and I'll ask for some advice from Priscilla on this. Priscilla, I'm not seeing I'm not seeing anything on there you are, sorry. I'm not seeing anything on our policies. Should there be a policies item? So let's add a policies while we're at it, and an apology to everyone that would like to see agendas that are a little bit more developed than this particular embryo was to the world. So let's add that. Where shall we add that?
New business?
Let's have that as new business. So it would be, so new business is negotiations update, executive session anticipated, and policies, which will be in public.
And legal matter, you said.
Pardon?
And legal matter.
And the legal stuff. Okay.
Where's the executive session?
The executive session, let's
Should be our last one.
yeah, executive session should be our last one. So it'd be, is that a new 9? Help me with my numbering.
I'll renumber them.
In about 30 seconds, we'll have new numbers courtesy of Lynn. Thank you so much for that. And while we're doing that, as I've said before, because we are partly online, because not everybody knows each other well, and because people that might be tuning in don't know necessarily any of us, we are going to, as a rule, do introductions right after adjustments to agenda. And for tonight, we're going to start on my furthest right, and start. Molly, why don't you introduce
Molly
yourself?
Bannock, representing Bellows Falls Union High School from the town of Westminster.
All right. And then I would like it if you folks would introduce yourselves. I know you're going to do it again in a few minutes, but why don't you do that? Just at least tell us who you are.
Jessica Dane, President Stacey Alexander, Acting Director for Student Services.
Jim Bazina, Andy's finance helper.
A lovely characterization.
Andy Haas, Superintendent of Schools.
Ricky Adams, technology.
I'm Jack Breyer, and I represent the Wyndham Northeast Union Elementary School District, and I'm also chair of this board from Grafton, Vermont.
I'm on the Wyndham Northeast Union Elementary School District representing Athens.
And your name is, madam?
Thank you, Lynn.
Chris Kibbe, Rockingham School Board.
Treasurer.
SU track.
Altered position, don't let us forget that.
Yeah.
Priscilla Lambert, representing Rockingham, and that's you, Cliff.
And because people don't know what order they are on our screen, I'm going to pick off people's names. Hardy, introduce yourself, if you will.
Hardy Merrill, WNUSD from Grafton, Vermont.
Jim, how about you?
Jim McAuliffe from Rockingham.
And Cheryl?
Cheryl Charles, Chair of the Westminster Board and a member of the Union WNESU Board.
And Keen.
TNBOC Westminster Board.
All right. There are a number of people who are not members of any boards, but are here remotely. If any of you have official business tonight and want to speak, this would be your time.
Jennifer Keenan is our administrator.
Jennifer, for example, Skip, I see Alex Webster. If any of you want to say hi, you can at this point.
Alex and I are from Specialized Purchasing Consultants. We were invited by Ricky and Andy.
Very good. And I see Jennifer Keenan. If you want to say hi.
Hi, Jennifer Keenan, WNESU Early Education Principal.
And Alex Webster, you are?
I'm the Operations Manager for Specialized Purchasing Consultants, also invited by Andy and Ricky.
I just always feel it's really good for people to know who's speaking in these things, because if you ever tune into Fact TV, you see a lot of faces that you might not have seen, don't know who they are, what they do, and why they're here. So thank you all. All right, so moving on to communications and public comments. Ricky, do we have anyone with their hand up, or you think might have their hand up?
I don't see anyone on the screen.
All right. Because this is the regular time for people to, if they wish to speak to the board about something not on the agenda, this is when you would do it. Moving on then, we will approve the minutes of April 6th, 2022, and I'll entertain a motion to do that.
So moved.
I've got a motion. Are there any amendments or changes anyone saw in them? Not hearing any, and congratulations to whoever did the work tonight. I'll do a roll call. All in favor, beginning with Molly.
Aye.
I'll win.
Aye.
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 Great. Hardy.
Aye.
Jigs.
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Tia. Tia, your silence is...
Oh, Teen, I'm not a voting member on this board.
Yeah, Tia, I know that, and I'm sorry, but
Don't worry.
Can't see that far away, and it looked like an A there. And I taught you enough times to be embarrassed. All right, very good. And so that's off on our list. We're now moving on to appointments. So this is where you speak and we do our thing.
Yeah, so I am excited to bring folks to you guys. The first one is Deb Cardane as our Director of Innovation and Instruction. Deb currently works with Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union as a curriculum coordinator, and just blew away our committee. I believe the support she will bring for our students, but also our teachers, and improving our instructional practices and the work we do in curriculum is just amazing. So.
All right. And this is a budgeted position for anybody?
This will begin as a grant funded position.
People did want to know these things. All right, very good. So is there anything, would you like to speak to folks and just tell them a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm equally excited to join your district. I was also blown away by the interview that I got to enjoy with your staff and your principals. Your district is a place that I think holds a lot of people who are interested in teaching and learning and curious. And I got a little glimpse of the principals and your leadership team and some PD that we did this year, and I was very excited to get to know them. And I look forward to bringing that to the district. I love teaching and learning; that's my passion. So to be able to do that work here is exciting.
All right, now, are there any questions anyone has among my board members for her tonight? Lack of curiosity is a little scary to me, but I'm glad that everybody blew each other away. Party, anything, Jim, Cheryl, Jean?
Good luck.
Good luck.
Well, Jack, I'll make a quick comment that I was among the many actually who were on the interview team, and Deb is outstanding. I think, I'm just really thrilled that she'll be joining the district.
Right, very good. Do we need a resolution from this board on this matter, or just?
Great.
Well, then why don't we? Then I'll entertain a motion to welcome, I guess, because this is your discretion, Deb as a new member of our team. Anyone want to do that? So we so moved. We'll do the roll call if there's no further comment. And we'll start with my colleague from Westminster.
Hi.
All right. Ben.
Yes.
Yes. All eyes all around this table. Hardy.
All right.
Jim.
Aye.
All right. Very good. Keen. I see you smiling. I'm assuming that's an aye anyway, but like you said, you're not a voting member.
I'm not a voting member, but it's an enthusiastic aye.
All right. Very good.
Hey, Jack, I get to vote. Aye.
I thought you raised your hand, and didn't I call you? This won't be the first break in decorum of the evening for anyone. All right, who else do we have tonight?
The other one, just she came in a little late, but she's sitting in the back there, is Shelley Wilson, as our new MTSS coordinator. And we talked, the MTSS coordinator is really bridging that gap between regular ed and special education. And Shelley is like we just talked yesterday, finalized things yesterday. So it's been rather quick, but wanted to bring her before you. Shelley also works for Wyndham Southeast. There's not a trend here. That
smells like a raid to me, but okay.
Shelley is currently the director of student services there, and I see it as the steal of the draft here to get Shelley along with Deb over here. But Shelley coming on to really work directly with our teachers to improve instructional practices, but also to support our students not only academically, but also with the social emotional. So working with the student services, working with the director of instructional innovation and instruction, and also working with our restorative practices, really building that team up to support our kids, especially during this time of loss of learning.
And for those who are acronym challenged, MTSS means?
Sorry, thank you. Multi-tiered systems of support.
All right. So somebody's going to ask what are multi-tiered systems of support. You sort of outlined it, but why don't you, maybe Shelley will tell us what multi-tiered systems of support is.
Nothing like a test. Here we go.
That's it. Pop quiz.
Can I preface it a little bit?
Please.
So one of the things, as
This is proctoring, I'm not
it
sure.
is. As we were interviewing Shelley and the vision she had that she laid out, where we always talk about these tiers or we talk about silos a lot of time, Shelley really put a different lens on it, and so if you can highlight that a little bit with the layers, because it was for me, I was like, it was an aha moment. So,
well, with that in mind, yeah, why don't you come on up? In fact, we can take a seat right here because these little owls are not terribly good. Even one of these over here. You're going to be part of the team. You might as well get used to it, right?
One word to the next. Here we go. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me here. So multi-tiered systems of support, is really an umbrella term that we use in education to sort of talk about all the different types of supports, social, emotional, and academic, that we can provide students via tiers, or as Andy mentioned, really there's been a shift in the educational think tank world into thinking about it as layers of support, and that students may need a high level of support in some areas and they might need no support in others, and that it's really about coordinating all the systems that a school district has to give students what they need at any given time. And so that's kind of my simplistic explanation of it. I have an extensive background in special education, and I just am, I was so excited to see the posting, and I really am very honored to be joining your team.
So again, we'll field questions if there are any. We'll start with the folks that are working remotely. Just speak up so I don't. It's just such satisfaction tonight. It's terrifying. Anybody here in the room have a question or a comment, or an irrelevant wisecrack?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Well, very good. We can do the same resolution of welcome if people want to do that. I'm taking that as a motion to that effect by Priscilla Lambert.
Jack, if people are licensed, you should indeed be voting on their.
Yes.
Then it's more than a welcome. It's to I'll accept a motion
If
to.
it's a licensed position and
to
a
accept.
license is required for the position, then the board needs to approve that.
Then that was, I appreciate the clarification, and the other was an ambiguous way of straddling it because I wasn't sure.
Right.
So
I'll accept that as an amendment to my motion.
so noted. And since we've done comments with the helpful one from our former superintendent, why don't we do the round table starting with Priscilla?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and outside, Hardy, with you?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
All right, and Teen, you can roll, even though your vote doesn't count, we're still happy to hear your view on this.
I have another enthusiastic aye.
All right, so we've got that. Thank you all. And I'm going to retroactively assume that the welcome was a motion to approve, just for the record.
I heard it that way, Jack.
Huh?
I heard it that way.
See, there you go. And this is why I have multiple interpreters for what the chair means to say. Do we have anyone else?
Yeah.
Kind of thought so.
Yeah, no, my last one, because Stacy does have something to appoint Stacy as the permanent director of student services. This board had asked me to do some querying of staff and of folks. We did an extensive survey of folks, and I've spoken with my administrative team. My administrative team wholeheartedly supports. And basically the question I was asked is, why hasn't it happened yet? And I feel the utmost confidence of Ms. Alexander in the position, and she has done a phenomenal job for us this year. I shouldn't say job. She's done a phenomenal 6 or 7 jobs for us this year. And I think with the addition of Deb and Shelley and some other folks that she's bringing on, we are building a team that is going to support our teachers and ultimately support our students to rise them up to the height they can get to.
All right, very good. Stacy, since you are a licensed professional, and we have a protocol for that, first off, let me check to see if anyone has any questions for Stacy or anyone else regarding this. Not hearing, not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion to.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
I'd like to just hear a little bit from you. I've heard your name for a long time. And, just as we ask, what all the acronyms are, What does the Director of Student Services, what are you gonna do now that you have some more help?
It will be a relief to have help. It's been a pretty challenging year. I've already been working with staff on a lot of things for next year, working with related services on screenings and how to support kids a little bit more with Shelley coming on board. We are going to be redesigning our professional development for special educators. We have a monthly meeting that is kind of outlived its usefulness.
Stacy, sorry,
Yep.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm seeing at least one person look like they're having trouble hearing you.
Okay, I'll try to yell. So we're redesigning our professional development system so that we are doing more targeted professional development with staff next year, paras and special education teachers. The new secondary coordinator that I will be bringing on, we're going to share that responsibility. It won't just be me focusing on elementary and her focusing on secondary. We're going to look at our strengths and design our professional development around that and around the needs of our staff. We've taken a lot of data on that this year, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from staff on things that they want to do.
So are you, Director of Student Services for the whole district?
Yes.
And then your special educators in buildings report to you for if something is going on they need extra help with?
We have special education, EST right now, which is educational support teams. We also have 504 that falls under our umbrella as well. And all the support staff and the special educators.
Does anyone want to know what 504 means? See, I'm going to assume at least one or two of our newer members have never heard the term before.
Okay. 504 is about an access plan. So if you have a disability, but it's not affecting your access to your education per se, it may be affecting a life circumstance, which could be education. Some 504s are based for students who have medical. Some 504s are very temporary. The student is having an emotional situation happening outside of school where they need some extra support. So we provide that. They can last for the length of a student's career in school, or they can last for a year or 4 months, 5 months. It really is individually different.
All right, thank you for that. Are there any other questions for this candidate? I see one.
Stacy, can you give us numbers on students and 504 and special ed and staff?
I can. It's actually going to do that in 2 weeks.
Okay. Got a competition.
I can. I'm just going to do a full presentation for the board in 2 weeks, but I can give you kind of an outline. We are at 26% special ed rate right now. So we have 272 students being serviced through special education, and we've had 20 new referrals this year, and we have probably 10 more referrals sort of in the pipeline. So it's been a busy year. I don't have EST numbers and 504 numbers yet, but I will have them in 2 weeks.
That's fair.
Thank you. Are there any other
Could I just
yes.
add, typically, just because I was in that seat,
Yes.
we've run about 30% of special education, so between 26 and 28%. It's been a pretty standard number. And then with 504 and EST, it's been about another 30% of our student population in our whole SU are on some type of plan. So in essence, 60% of our student population is on some type of an academic or behavior plan.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions about Stacy or about special ed and how she fits in this, or just questions generally? I'm not seeing it. Do you have a question? Okay, then I guess I'm looking for a motion to accept. I'm getting tips from my colleague to my left. Tips. To accept Stacy Alexander as director of appoint her as a director of student services.
I would be honored to make that motion because we've had this conversation many times over the years, and I'm thrilled to see her stepping up.
Well, that sounds like an emotion laden motion. Going around the room, we'll start with Molly.
Aye.
With
Yes.
Lynn. I'm going to guess, but I don't want to assume. And with Priscilla.
Yes.
Okay, external, Cheryl. What say you?
Aye, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Hardy, what say you?
Aye.
And Jakes, what say you?
Aye.
And Tia, you or your colleague in the room can have a vote of the same weight. So I think that was a nod yes by at least
Definitely
one.
aye, sorry. Yeah.
All right, so there we go. And what do we have any others, Mr. Superintendent?
I am now gonna
You.
default over here to Stacy because she has a few.
All
she'd
right.
like to present.
I have 3. One of them is actually joining us. Sam McAllister has graciously accepted a position at Bellas Falls Union High School as a special educator. Sam comes to us from Spalding High School, is making the move down here. She's actually the first applicant that asked me for a tour to see the building. So we came up to the high school, she looked around, she loved the open concept, and that was her kind of swaying decision to come work for Wyndham Northeast. So we are very excited to have Sam. She's got some great ideas, and we're happy to have her coming on board.
All right, and
What was the name? Sam McAllister.
for Samantha.
Samantha, she likes to be called Sam.
All right.
What's the name of the position?
She's going to be a special education teacher.
I just have to ask, we used to have a Sam McAllister.
Yes, not the same Sam.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
If other people know, there was a Sam.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't even think about that. Yes.
Well, hence the antha part of this is important. Okay, very.
Sam, I don't know if you'd like to say hello.
And we go.
Hi, if that's me. My last name's actually Alexander, not McAllister.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, that's my mistake.
All
Yeah,
right.
you should know that. Seems fine.
Yeah, there you
A little nervous today.
What level?
Yes. Well, what level
Is this the president?
Yeah, she will be coming in at level 4.
And are there any questions for Sam Alexander? And I'd encourage the folks from Bellas Falls Union High School, if they have any particular questions, to do so. Always a little scared when people like this open concept. Well, welcome, even though I question your choice in architecture.
Jack's
right,
not
so
a fan.
Huh?
Jack's not a fan of our open concept, but it makes some really good college kids after they've had to learn here.
There you go. All right, so I guess this also qualifies as requiring a motion to appoint. So I've got that from I've got that, and why don't we start around the room? Molly?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And online, Cheryl? Marty?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
All right, yeah, we have a unanimous approval there.
Aye from me too, Jack.
Yeah.
This is Cheryl.
Cheryl, you know, I guess I just can't assume your approval is that's what I must be doing. I apologize. All right, who else do we have?
So next is Erin Morley. Erin has been with us this year as a student teacher out of Keene State. She's been at the Westminster School and has enjoyed her time and agreed to come on to the vacant position we have right there in the 3rd and 4th grade. So she will be joining us as a long-term sub next week, and then she will come on as a full-time special education teacher.
And level would be?
The masters.
Level 4 masters. All right, thank you. And again, I'll entertain a motion to appoint.
So moved.
I've got that motion. Any questions from colleagues? I'm going to do it online first. Cheryl, since I've managed to miss you so far consistently. Cheryl, what say you?
Aye, thank you.
Hardy,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ollie,
Aye.
Aye.
Lynn, thank you, and Priscilla. All right, so we have, and thank you, Chris. So we have that motion approved. And who else if we have? You said three?
I did. My last one is Lori Coonsbury. Lori is going to be coming on as our secondary special education coordinator. She is currently working in Wisconsin as an associate principal, and she has worked in Chicago, Illinois as a director of student services. So Lori has a lot of really great strengths. Her references were amazing. She has a lot of unique experiences and will fill in some of the holes that I don't have experience in, so it would be a good match for both of us.
And what will be her formal title?
Secondary special education coordinator.
Secondary special ed. All right, and I, go ahead.
She will be funded out of the IDEA grant.
All right, so she's a grant-funded position. And I heard rumors she might be moving to Saxons River.
She has already bought a house. She grew up in Putney and has been trying to move back for a year, and we are the only place that she applied to.
Well, she made a good choice there, didn't
Make a
she?
great choice.
All right. Very good, welcome. And we need to, before we say welcome, I need to get an appointment approved. So I'm going to look for that. Do I? We've got one. Thank you. So going around the horn, Priscilla?
Yes.
How about you, Chris?
Yes.
When?
Oh.
She was so worried that I was going to miss her that she wanted to make sure she got it. And Molly? Hardy? All right, Jim?
Aye.
And Teen, I don't know if you can do that now that your associate's missing.
Yeah. Yes, aye.
Right, very good. So thank you for that. And do we have, are there more?
No.
I think that's it for right
All
now.
right, very good. Thank you all. So
What
we're,
was Lori's last name? Coonsbury.
yeah,
COOMES hyphenated Berry, BARRY.
COOMES BERRY.
BARRY.
BARRY. All right, very good. Thank you for that. I'll get that clarified for the record. So up next, we have, let's see, where are we? Confusion abounds here. Hold on a second. Let's see where we're at.
6 appointments.
We did appointments, so reports, superintendent, and there's also something that sounds really interesting called the copy presentation.
Before we jump into that,
Yeah.
may I excuse Deb and Shelley so that if they want to leave, so that, you know.
You mean you don't think they'll find this?
I mean,
all that
after
fascinating?
July 1, we'll want them to stay, but you know, I mean, I didn't.
And, permitted with deep hurt, but yeah.
I mean, they may want to stay. I just wanted to extend that opportunity. So.
Have a life, at least for now, because you're becoming working for us and that'll be gone. So,
Well, thank you.
all right.
Awkwardly. Thank you all so much.
All right.
Yeah, it's great to meet you.
All right.
So I did send out my my updates and reports, but I wanted to just levy my time to talk about copiers and so we brought Alex and did we lose him? No, there he is, Skip. To kind of coach me along here a little bit, but a lot of this work, I have to say, belongs to Ricky Adams. He has done a tremendous amount of research. Copy machines are not in his wheelhouse, but I think it's another example of when we were down and out and missing people and not having a business manager, and everyone just rolling up their sleeves and taking on things that needed to be done. And so we were at a point where our copy leases our copiers were getting pretty darn old. We were at a point where we were, we needed to make some decisions. And so Ricky had gone out, and so Ricky put this presentation together. And so this is a 5-year plan that we are presenting. that has a potential savings to the entire SU of a considerable amount of money. So, anything you want to add to that opening?
Covered most of it.
All right.
All right, well, so Ricky, you've got a screen up for those who would like to take, so why don't you fire away?
Sure. My presentations tend to be very dry and boring, so I'm going to keep it brief. We initially approached this as a committee, a small like copier upgrade committee. I guess let me back up a little bit. A lot of our copiers in the district are, I think, from Chris Kibbe's time when he did a similar project maybe a decade ago.
That was a long time ago.
They are very old and they are very well worn and ready to go. We've heard many complaints over the years, before COVID and now, from those schools that use that equipment. A lot of it is still original too when it was under Mr. Kibbe. So from there, we put together a committee of people. We went out to bid ourselves. We couldn't quite come to a conclusion of the two companies we had response from. So from there, I heard of this company called Specialized Purchasing Consultants, and that's Alex and Skip. We canceled our RFP and signed on with them, and they came in and did a full audit, made their recommendations to industry standards, so on and so forth. So really what this is replacing all of our equipment district-wide, putting it under one centralized lease, low interest lease, and hopefully saving us some money over the long term.
Are we still doing a by the page business? Or we finally past that, or what? Tell us about this.
It's technically by the page plus the equipment. It is a lease of new equipment, which is not what most of the schools had in the past. Most of the schools had a straight rental per page, nothing else, but at a very high rate compared to modern rates.
Will all facilities have access to a machine?
Yep.
On premise.
Now, Those Falls was on a separate contract, so now they're being pulled into the.
Yeah, everybody would be brought up together.
Yeah.
And the new equipment was part of getting everybody together. So the big goals were to perform an in-depth cost and usage analysis of MFD devices, so that's multifunction devices, establish a process to monitor, manage, and forecast the usage, simplify the billing for AP, because right now, you know, you get they get a lot of bills. There's separate leases for the high school, there's usage bills that trickle in from each entity. We also wanted to create processes for secure printing where it doesn't exist now. So you print something off on the copier, actually going to release it is a deliberate act. You got to tell it, okay, I'm here at this copier, have it come out. It takes time. It's a little extra work for whoever's going to do it, but it ensures that we don't have secure documents like IEPs or anything falling into the incorrect hands, right? It's also hoping the correct course. So the budgeting right now is just kind of, I don't know how to describe it.
I can use it in colorful terms.
Moving on.
Interesting,
right? I did share this out. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to go on to the next slide. Does that work for everyone? Okay. So our approximate yearly usage is 2.46 million.
Okay.
Pages, right?
Yeah.
So 2 million of those is monochrome or black and white, and about 450,000 is color. And you know, some of the schools, they're paying as much as 10 cents per page for color.
Right, the old numbers.
Yeah. So this is a slide. This is part of the work with Skip and Alex at SPC. Part of their audit, they come in and look at your present situation, and then they generate a proposal. So right now, our present situation, we have no guarantees on our equipment. It's all fairly old. I'm going to skip right down to photocopiers. So right now we have 28 photocopiers. Of those 28, 11 are color. For multifunction printers, MFPs, we have 11, which 4 are color. And then of like a straight printer, so multifunction printer can like scan and all that. With a straight printer, we have 18, 6 of which are color. And then of all that chunk above, 43 units have duplexers or can double side. So, you know, print on both sides. Yep. And then of that chunk above, 12 can actually finish like hole punch or staple, what have you. So under the proposed situation, we're going to drop one copier. So our total photocopier count would be 26. 2 copiers. 26, 2 would be 12 would be color. We would drop down a few MFPs, a few printers. Our functionality would go up in the finishing area. So we went from 12 units that could finish to 27. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yeah.
I'm trying to accelerate.
That's all right. If people remote have questions, and they're going to have to speak up because I can't see anybody with the screen. So if you have a question, just interrupt and pipe up, okay? Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, awesome. So presently we have 6 different manufacturers among all of our equipment. There's 37 different models out there that we have to support right now. So we have 57 pieces of equipment, right?
Yep.
37 different models. It's a driver nightmare. Most of the copiers are on service contracts. We buy the toner, etc. I'll let you guys read that top part on your own time, unless you want me to read it. So under this proposal, we would get print management included through SPC called StarDoc, and that allows more estimating and forecasting of what the device usage will be over time. This also adds in a product called PaperCut, which is very granular tracking of usage. Right now, we don't have any capital. We only have a fair market lease at the high school for 1 unit, which is in the main office. That's 14 to 15% interest. Under this proposal, we'd all come in at 3.49% interest. You know, our service and supply costs, the averages are there. Through their bidding process, so moving on to the bottom part of the presentation. So our present cost is service and supplies. These are estimates off of bills, etc. Service and supplies is about $22,000 for color, $41,600 for black and white. Our annual lease at the high school is $6,869, which I want to point out they've been paying for several years and they don't own their machine and they won't. And the forced upgrade line, I can't describe that well, so I might ask Skip or Alex to explain that if anybody has questions. So part of their bid, they went out, it's cooperative buying with SPC, so they work kind of in the Northeast with other school systems. I think there's probably 12 or 15 Vermont schools, so correct me. 15 Vermont schools that came together or come together and work through them. And there's more outside of Vermont, but usually they just go out to bid in big chunks. So instead of us buying measly 28 copiers or 26 copiers, it's in the hundreds. So SimQuest is our selected winner from the bid that they did. Their rates were the most aggressive. So our estimated present cost, these pages needed some updates earlier. So if you looked at the original, make sure you have V3 in your lower right-hand corner. Some of the estimates we still think are probably off, but again, the estimated volume, whatever you actually use, you're going to get billed for. So if you use less, it's going to cost you less. If you use more, it'll cost you more. So the present cost is about $70,596 for the whole district. Any questions on this slide?
Just one. I'm just those, and I hear Jigs. Jigs, go ahead, and we'll ask around in here.
The 70,000 you're showing here, is that correspond to the 69,000 you showed on the previous slide?
Yeah, so this is the existing cost. The next slide will be the, that one. So SimQuest winning bidder, that should correspond on the slide after this one.
Yeah.
So So we're currently paying 70,500 and we're going to pay 69,000.
Correct. So right now you have 10-year-old equipment. You'll get brand new equipment, book management software to actually track and control that usage. So your savings is about 1,500 for the whole district.
So Ricky, would you,
I would say-
this is the Skip. Would you like us to explain what the forced upgrades are? That
No.
might help.
I don't care. No, I don't.
Well, let's just see if anybody else cares. Would you slide back, would you move up one from where you, from this one to the one you just showed? One of the things I note is, you know, this is going to, I promise, I'll talk to you, I'll ask you in a second. So one of the things I noticed is that that use estimated volume and cost numbers look significantly different. Like example, where was it? Saxon's River has got a $7,000 cost for an estimated volume of 160,000 pages, but Westminster Center School with 3 times as much volume is only paying about a third more. And the question I have here is just, is this going to impact some districts, especially small ones, disproportionately? I'm noticing again, Grafton Elementary will be doing 1/5 as many copies, but paying half, you know, a little less than half as much as Westminster Center School. I just want to know if everybody's equal beneficiary out of this thing, or some places are getting hosed a little bit.
I think on the next schedule, if you look at Grafton as an example, it drops to a couple $1,000s. So they're sort of taking that into consideration here.
Right, this is the present.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
this is okay. Thank you. I misread
Well,
that.
it's confusing.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Okay, so then move, and I appreciate the clarification from the pair of you.
Yeah. So this is the proposed.
So you'll see at Grafton, it drops down to $1,400 as opposed to $4,000. I believe one school does go up. Is that correct a little bit?
Yeah.
Ricky?
So the high school goes up $775 a year. Part of that is from a proposed wide format printer. We haven't actually solidified that. We're going to try to get maybe a business plan or something from the high school before we approach that more. Westminster will be up once you guys divorce, but the rest are down in some way.
Thank you. Priscilla had her hand up. Yes.
Are we at a point where the lease ends so that we're not responsible for any funds because we're still paying a lease?
From what I understand, Rockingham, Westminster, Grafton, everyone but the high school is more of a handshake agreement. Can't find any paperwork, so no lease, no documentation, no protection. The high school has one lease. I'm not sure if we've missed the cancellation period for that one lease yet. So the way that the financing works at the high school, you have to send a letter in a very specific span of time to actually cancel it. And then once you cancel it, you have to return the equipment, like actually bring the equipment to a designated location, which is crazy. But it's possible that we've missed the high school. But
You got a truck?
not anymore.
Give him the bell, though.
Yep.
To New Jersey with you. Okay. So any questions on the proposed?
I had a question. The specialized purchasing consultants, is there, when we look at these costs, does any kind of a fee that goes to them, is it included in the price? Or is there a price over and above that for their service?
Included. There's a rate that is applied to each copy, and then there's a rate applied to each unit that you purchase. So it is included.
So it's included in these numbers that we see.
And I think as Ricky was saying, what this proposal is an up to amount.
Yes.
That we still have the ability, just like he was talking about with the wide printer, if we deem we don't need that, or if we deem that there are certain units that we don't need, these numbers would come down. They would never go up.
How long is this for? Because it would never go up. It's a really fun phrase. So
Sorry, yes, that was probably a misquote.
This is a 5-year lease.
Okay, so it will not go up during the 5 years of the contract.
Correct.
Okay, given costs, everything else, we're about 10% a year. That's
It amazes me that.
What happens after the 5 years?
Thank you, Marty.
Skip or Alex can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we buy it for $1, and then we can either decide to approach this again in a similar way with kind of a review and a plan, or you could opt to keep continuing on the same equipment. So either we just do it again, or we.
That is
That is
correct.
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
This might be a naive question, but you mentioned a lease rate of what, 3.4 something, whatever percent.
Yes.
And I was wondering how does that figure into these numbers? And I thought it might refer to price escalations during the 5-year period, but I guess what you've said is that these prices will be held for 5 years. So I'm just curious as to the significance of that lease rate.
You want to address that, Alex?
Sure.
Go ahead,
I mean,
Alex. Yeah.
the capital costs are fixed. So you have a set amount that you need to get loaned from the bank in order to buy the new equipment. And that is fixed for the 5 years. So that won't vary at all. And the proposal here is to distribute that amongst the various legal organizations that you have. So what will vary is the amount that you print every year.
So that's included in the service and supplies and equipment category.
The service and supplies is based on the volume, the estimated volume you see there.
Okay.
So like Ricky said, if you go down, if paper cut helps you save on prints, then your costs go down. The equipment will be fixed.
Okay. And that includes this lease rate.
Yeah, so you see the bottom line there is 44,459. That's the grand total.
That's your equipment grand total.
That's the equipment grand total, yes.
And the services and supplies, what happens when the machine breaks? Does that change my service costs automatically, or are you somebody coming in and fixing this?
No, that's the beauty of having a cost per copy arrangement. Labor, parts, and time is all covered in that. All the machines come with a 5-year warranty as well. So if the vendor can't fix the issue, they'll be required to replace it at no charge.
Well, Hardy, did you have your hand up earlier? Because I want to make sure your question was answered.
Yes, it was. And I have, in a prior life, I've done business with SimQuest before, and it's a good arrangement.
Thank you. That's helpful. Did I hear Keen had a question?
Keen might have had a question.
Keen, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question. So does the company, are you required to put paper cut onto the machines, or is that something the district is just choosing to do?
For those of us who don't know what that means, tell me what that means.
So I'll take a stab at it, and then someone can maybe correct me, but paper cut gives us the ability to basically, you send a print job, you hit print, and nothing comes out at the machine until you walk over there and put in a code, or you have a proximity card that you swipe, and then it will say, oh, Jack's here. Do you want to print this? Okay. And then you can hit print. And one of the things in a former district, we instituted it as a cost savings, because a lot of times people, you send the job and then you're like, oh, I screwed that up, right? And then, but it's spitting out. And so you just now remember, if you print a 100-page book and there's one, magenta on the first page,
yeah, the
entire 100 pages are but they print as a color, right, even if they're all black and white.
Right.
And so paper cut would allow for that piece to a little bit of cost savings there and control. We could also start to reduce our desktop printers, the inkjet printers and those things,
which need to die.
which are immensely costly with toners and whatnot. So we can work to move those down, and this proposal already moves them down. We can move down more. And then the other piece that it allows is it allows us to track. So like the other day when we were having a meeting with negotiations, I was able to go on. I didn't have to add the printer. I didn't know if we had it because we've been testing it a little bit. And I was able to print here at the high school, even though I don't have the printer installed on my computer. So it allows that remoteness also. So.
All right. Thank you.
Did I cover that? I don't. I want to make sure I understand it, so I'm not explaining it wrong.
All right. Tina, did that cover it for you?
Yeah, that covered. We use paper cut in the district that I work on and I was just wondering about it. There's some definite pros to it, and there's sometimes a little bit of a pain, like if you forget your tag or you don't have paper cut open, it can be a little bit of a pain, but it's also helpful to see, like I have the constant running balance of how much money I've spent on paper this year. And it's a nice little reminder in the corner.
Any other questions? Molly.
Jack, this is, excuse me.
I'm going to do Molly, then I will do you, okay? Well then, Cheryl, I guess you get first shout on this.
Well, I wonder if you could go back to the previous slide. I just got a quick question about what it means. What is the reference to black through all of them? My question is whether we still are getting to do color printing where it seems to be appropriate.
So that's an oversight on my part where I didn't delete the word black because it's actually the combined total of color and black.
Okay, thank you.
Molly?
So I'm amazed with all the laptops we have purchased, and we email everybody everything that we're using this much paper still.
Yes.
Honestly, I mean, totally not against anything you've done here, but as I look at what the high school uses for paper, that's going to be one of the things I'm going to at least ask that question about, because we all know that it's not cheap, and we all live off these things. And I mean, here I'm sitting with a notebook, but this is 2 years. This isn't. It's not a lot.
Jack, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, I know Chelsea. And your daughter's in college. I know my son's in college. I don't think he's actually touched a piece of paper this entire first year in college. Yet, we just take the high school. We're still printing out papers for our kids, and we're not getting. We need to work with our teachers to say, take that piece of
They all have a
take
laptop,
that
right?
take that journal article that you want them to read, upload it, and they can read it on their Chromebook. And it's a transition. It's but we've got to work deliberately with our staff.
I think
when I look at that, I think that's an enormous amount of copies, especially at the high school level. They all have phones that probably they don't even use their Chromebook half the time, reading off their phones.
Right.
And, I think we need to try to do a better job at that.
Yeah.
Tina has her hand up.
Sure.
just in terms of the amount of paper usage, high school might be a little bit different, but in elementary school, kids really have to use an exceptional amount of paper because they're learning to write. They're learning, like when you are teaching kids to annotate text, often that's happening on paper. So a lot of when you're doing a lot of in-depth math work, a lot of that has to be on paper pencil. So that could be a lot of the usage as well. It would be developmentally appropriate for young kids, particularly elementary, to be working on a screen most of the day when they would ideally be working with paper and pencil because it's helping them with their fine motor skills as well.
I have Cheryl, and then I've got a comment. So Cheryl, did you have something?
No, I asked my question a moment ago. Thank you.
Early part of my career, I was developing electronic documents and what their legal implication was when you stored stuff on computers. And I would go to state legislatures and testify before the U.S. Congress that we were going to drop printing and paper costs by 50% by the year 2020. And we're missing that goal quite a bit. I agree. I think that yeah, I'll even challenge Tina's point about little kids, because I've got a toddler who's learned to write on a tablet and does a pretty good job of it, to be honest with you. And she's 3. There is we do need to encourage people, and maybe more than encourage, kind of explain to people this is part of their responsibilities to transfer the 21st century. Because it is these utilizations are actually higher than they were a few years ago, which I find mind blowing. Just one final thought, and that is Chris Kivy and I had mutual colleague, Russ Capron, who every year would rage about the overuse of paper and how it's destructive of forests and destructive of his wallet. And it's funny to hear this. This is actually feels like a good plan to me, but we really do need to pair it with a real campaign to kill as much paper and not as many trees and cut our usage down. So do I need a motion to approve the contract? Is that what we're looking for? And what would the motion say?
So Skip and Alex might be able to explain this better. So typically how their leasing works is the biggest usage entity holds the lease and everybody has a sharing agreement with that entity.
I would feel better if that sharing agreement was done at the SU level and parceled out. The reality is that we are trying to consolidate functions at the SU, desperately trying to do that. We had a whole alternative governance structure based on that premise. And I would want and since you come to us, as opposed to Bellas Falls Union High School, say, I would want it to be done here, if that's at all possible.
I'm not gonna lie, we were gonna bring this to every board. Skip, is there any reason why this couldn't come out of the WNESU?
You have to have a, this is a municipal lease, tax exempt, it's done with a local bank. And that's why the interest rates are so low. So it gives you a non-appropriation clause where you can cancel it once a year. So it only commits funds 1 year at a time. And at the end, you own it for $1. So all of those are true. But for it to qualify as a tax exempt lease, the paper has to be held by an entity, a school district, that can tax directly. It can't be done by the SAU, or I'm not the SAU, but the district. So where you get your funds from the various other districts, it has to be direct. So you would carry a master lease, and then you'd have what is called sharing agreements. So the sharing agreements are internal documents which we have prepared, which promise to pay back the lease, the entity that's holding the lease. So you get one invoice a year, and then you distribute out the funds internally.
I'm going to push back just a tad, Skip, on this. We have about $500,000 worth of school buses that we do this with, and I hear the business about taxing authority, but the state has, in their pleasures, made supervisory unions more than just a coordinating committee. They own assets. They own a lot of assets. They do a lot of contracting, and this board cannot commit Bellas Falls Union High School to signing anything. So essentially we're back to the nonsense where the high school has to bill the SU, which then turns around and has to bill the individual remaining districts. And I don't like that. So many levels. Is there a way around this? I'm asking my business manager is smiling at me.
I agree with you that it seems to me that, as an entity, you should be able to purchase and enter into a contract.
Well, we do it all the time. That's why I'm asking.
You can. Yeah, but it's the interest rates of the low interest rates of that it's tax exempt, that it's an IRS ruling. It has where to qualify for a non-appropriation clause and low interest, it has to be done by an entity that can tax directly to the population, people.
Yeah, what I'm going to suggest to you is that you and our business manager have a lovely conversation, and that the business manager come back to us with a proposal that the required board approves.
Sure.
And we'll leave it to your discretion to figure that out. I believe we are, I don't know if we're 501c3, but yeah, we've been a 501c3. And we have, I believe we have that those kind of nonprofit relationships with our custodial banks. So I'm a little surprised this is an issue. And I just have huge amount of confidence that you two can figure this out.
Sure.
And get back to us.
Well,
So why don't we do that and continue on with our meeting? And we'll look forward to your recommendation the next time we convene.
okay.
Thank you. So I'm going to move on with everyone's permission, and thanks to the folks who presented, Skip and Alex and their colleagues. Thank you very much for the work you've done, because on paper this looks very promising. So on we go. So what's next on our agenda? Finance. So here we are, finance. It looks like a report from finance.
I don't want to speak for John. I think,
Well, you are.
I'm just going to say, Jim just started with us, full time Monday.
Well, Jim could introduce himself.
And so that's more of what it is
That would be lovely. We're going to see you a lot, so let's see you now.
I will say Andy's had me working hard. So let's cut to the chase. The budgeting process, and when I say that, it's creating that account, that state of Vermont Agency of Education 20-digit account number.
Yep.
And that's what I've been feverishly working on now, getting all the separation of accounts and structure. And we are working on the databases to have the right numbers. And I will hope that your budgeting process will be completely different than what you're used to.
By that, I'm hoping that means better.
Yes.
We need budget tracking. We need to be able to do comparisons so we understand that. I'm going to introduce you to two of the folks who you're going to get to know really, really well, because they're here. Jake McAuliffe can wave when he's not looking down on whatever he's looking down on. Jim, say hi to your new best friend. and the same with Hardy Merrill.
Yes.
I've already met Jim. I've met him already a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure that I'll be spending some time with him.
One of the things that I want to have happen, and just because I want it doesn't mean it will, is to have the various to have our traditional budget committees turn into finance committees, which means they'll own long-term planning, long-term financial projection, and start to run these shops like they're a business, and run these shops like they're divisions of a core entity. I hope that's not a surprise to anybody. But that would mean, I'm hoping that not only will we have individual budget committees, but during a good portion of the year, the individual budget committees will meet just like our negotiations folks meet together, just like our policies folks meet together, and get our best professionals in the room and meet with you and really start to develop out some master plans. The town of Grafton just won an award for their long-term planning, and I understand Hardy Merrill had more than a little to do with that. So that's, we are striving for that professional relationship.
Good.
Also, I don't want anybody to fall asleep during financial presentations on the individual boards, and so they'll take their a couple cups of coffee and sit down with you. So that seem like a fair way of going forward, guys and ladies, and all the other folks that are on the individual, and Chris as well, of course.
I think it's fair, but before you jump into that, I think there is so much that needs to be put in place and corrected.
Oh, he's got a big job, and actually all of you.
I want that first. I want, last year it closed out, and I want financials for this year for all the districts. Because I don't think they have them yet.
I think you may be right. I think what we've seen have been provisionals, and we are 6 months out.
I think that's great to have a vision about what you want it to look like, but I think we're starting in the hole. And before you start on new things, these people that are on these boards, some of them haven't seen a financial for this year yet.
That's not okay.
I don't think anybody has.
Well, we've seen,
that's one.
We've seen some fairly.
Seen some interim financials, but they're not compelling. What I think I agree with Chris Kibbe. I think it's great to have plans, but I think we start from Jim starts from a tough position, and I think what I would hope is at this meeting or the next meeting that Jim can give us at least some idea of when he'll be comfortable giving us some interim financials for the current fiscal year. I mean, we're almost through with the current fiscal year, but we would sincerely like to see some year-to-date numbers. So
that seems more than fair and a very good point. Thank you for making it.
And I think it also has to start with the SU.
Okay.
Because we are confident about the SU assessments at this point, and until you have those, it's hard to have confidence in your entity's financials.
And I will say the critical piece that I start with always is that budget piece, to know where the heck I am. And I mean, I financially, no, separate. This is separate, but that budget piece of knowing what costs for your employees are 72% of the budget, and we've got to know where the heck that is. Is that a true number where we're headed? And that's what I'm trying to find out now with the database management. I will say the e-finance accounting system, I am not confident with. I had a conversation with Bill Bates at the Agency of Education today about having some training and support as we go forward. And I mean, I've got to have you know, I've been in the business for 34 years, and we should be able to reconcile to a checking account and know what our balance is. And with e-finance, you're not able to.
Right.
And even the accountant can't reconcile yet.
Yeah, we noticed.
So those we're all uncomfortable with. Do I have a quick Band-Aid for? No, I do not. I will try to manage it and make sure that we're headed in the right direction.
I'm going to suggest something for all parties, because I do think this conversation itself is a meeting's worth of material. And this is one of the reasons why I was suggesting getting everybody together, is I think that rather than repeat that hour and a half worth of work, that if everybody, that if the individual members of the individual finance and budget committees can get together, and I'll circulate documents, see if we can, get a common time, because I think there's a deep dive that needs to be done. There needs to be requirements. What do we need now? What do we need 30 days from now? What do we need, for the rest of them? Because we have, I always talk about calendars. Come fall, we have to be confident that we can go forward with a budget, which would be the first time in about 3 years. Right now, we have no sense of our standing. And I recognize you've been officially on the job and we can count them in hours. So, but the best way for you all to perform your oversight function and not to do this 10 times is to have everybody in a room. So does that seem like a process that everyone is comfortable with?
Well,
maybe you don't.
I would
So
question
back,
whether you
back.
need. I would question whether you need a big meeting now.
Well, not everybody, just the finance
Yeah,
folks.
I think we need to give Jim a chance to understand what he's up against.
Right.
Yeah,
You got a week. We're going to give you a week.
Well,
Thank you.
Jim, I'm trying to figure out, for real, do you want to meet in a month? When do you want to do this thing? Because I don't want to push it off indefinitely, and I don't want to set unrealistic expectations. What makes sense to you all?
What makes sense to me is to let Jim come back to us at the next meeting and see if he can give us an estimate of when he's going to be comfortable presenting us with some interim financials. And I think that's a good way to start because it involves all of the pieces that go into this, getting comfortable with those pieces. So I'd just like to give him a chance to do that.
Molly?
And Jack, excuse me, this is Cheryl. I'm just going to weigh in too and say I agree with Jiggs and what Chris Kibbe is saying. Give him a chance. We don't need to set a meeting date now.
Molly, you had your hand up as well. Sorry.
So I don't think any of us here are going to disagree with maybe what you're looking for, Jack, but I think we have to also remember that we have school board members that aren't in business.
Yeah.
Don't understand financing like you or Jiggs or Hardy or even the experience that I have had, which is way less than you guys, but experience in it. When we go and have a budget committee meeting, it has to kind of be in layman's terms.
I agree.
So that the other members can understand it. No disrespect to anybody. Everyone's got different things that they're good at, but so you want to get involved a lot deeper, and I get that. But I think right now there's so many questions on where the SU really is, and there's been so many articles in the paper and so many problems that if we could just get something that was what people could understand.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into the thick of things after he's had a chance to at least make it in a chart where people can read it and make sense of it. Because I totally realize that it's way deeper than that, but we have a lot of people involved in our budgets who don't run businesses, don't run budgets, so we do have to have a simpler version when we come to a board to be able to explain to them what we have done, to be able to explain to our taxpayers what we have done, and then get into the thicker of it. Definitely, I'm not against that, but that's something.
My thought, and it's just one person's thought, was that the folks who I'll consider domain experts do the deep geek work, to use a phrase, and that one of the things we do as a goal for the large reports is to kind of do a finance 101, because I think you're absolutely right that a lot of people don't understand the numbers. I've always watched eyes glaze over when we do budgets. There have been years when I've led budget committees And I could tell that everybody's just hoping that what I'm telling them is accurate and not really having the ability to know. And that's very uncomfortable. So I think these are all good points. So get a laundry list.
Welcome.
So thank you. And you were up in up North Country, right? Didn't you?
In Hartford.
Oh, you were
one of many places.
Oh, you were in Hartford? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So I know folks up in, I know some of the board members up in Hartford. So
yeah.
And you know who our current congressman used to be a school board member from
Yes.
Hartford. So, all right, very good. Thanks again.
Okay.
David, I'm sorry. If I could just ask one request of Jim. Apparently the copier lease proposal is going to come back to us at the next meeting. Mr. Chair, is that correct?
That is my hope. I don't compel anybody to do it, but it sounds like this is time sensitive and we need to get rocking and rolling.
And I would say if we can work out the wrinkle with, getting this under the SU.
Yeah.
Maybe the board can give us permission to go forward.
That's what I was kind of wondering initially, whether we should have a motion as conditional, a conditional authorization of the business manager to negotiate this with the, what's the name of this company again? Thank you.
Specialized
purchasing consultant.
There you go. Jim takes better notes than I do. Not a surprise. With specialized purchasing consultants, and I guess to negotiate a contract if possible. So if I'm looking for a motion to that effect, yes,
Sure.
Priscilla?
We need that to come back because we have to find out whether we can even do that. So
Well, I think the question.
I think we really need to wait. They're supposed to bring it back to us next time. That's what we agreed on.
Well, with your permission, I think the question here is, will we save everybody time if in fact Jim can get this worked out with these folks? And I just can't understand why it's a problem. We could save time.
My feeling is that the consultant was right on. I think there is an issue.
All right.
But
Yes.
I think if Jim, what point I was going to make, and I'm happy to make the motion here too, but subject to his satisfactory review, is to get a feel from him based on his experience as to whether this looks like a good deal or not.
Well, I guess the question is going to be who's going to approve this at the end of the day? It's going to be this board, it's going to be the high school, is it going to be Grafton? Who's going to own this contract? Seems like issue A, or am I missing something?
I think we've already got budgets for next year, so it's going to be allocated the way that.
Yeah, but somebody has to own the contract. Somebody has to own the contract.
I think what Jim was, and correct me if I'm wrong, is if they can work it out, can we have a motion that if we can make it go through the SU, can we just go ahead with it without having to bring it back here because of the time sensitive?
Yeah.
If we can't work it out, then we're gonna have to go to whichever board that is.
Well, I guess I'm looking for motion to that effect, to authorize the business manager to explore and to sign if possible, a contract with, I didn't write it down, I can't, or systems, specialized purchasing. There we go. Thank you all.
Jack, I'm
Yes.
comfortable with exploring it, but I'm not comfortable with him going ahead and signing it. They were supposed to be bringing it back to the board.
Well, the thing is, we're
And we
saying that
don't know whether we can do that.
with point taken, and you may end up voting no on that basis. What I'm saying is that we're saying, if you can do it, do we give him permission to sign if he can do it? The condition is essentially to authorize him to do it if he can. If
So
he
I
can't,
understand what you're saying, and I think that it's gonna save us another half an hour
Yeah.
presentation So if, I would like to make that motion that if,
Okay, I want to hear this, and I'm gonna have Hardy speak.
go ahead, Artie.
I think the issue is in the interest rate, the 3.75%. And I think that's probably a legal interest rate. So they could probably do it, but they probably have to raise the interest rate to make the deal with the bank, because they won't be able to go through the financing agency that they're working with now, which means the cost would go up.
Yeah.
So I think that is the issue.
Should we let him find out, Hardy, is I guess the question.
No, I'd say go ahead, but I'm just saying, I think that's what the issue is.
All right, well, if it turns out that it's going to cost us more money, I assume he's going to come back with a recommendation saying, well, let's to a district.
I think what I was hearing was, if that deal that we just presented to you with those interest rates and everything could somehow sit under the SU, that's what we're asking permission to just.
Right.
If a 0.5% more or whatever, I would want to bring it right back because of,
okay,
it's different.
So that's what we're looking for. So I'm looking for a motion to that effect to authorize the business manager, and I've got it from Molly. And is there further questions on this, or can I call the question and then do a roll call?
So can we talk through the motion so that everybody
Yes.
understands it? So we have a motion on the floor to authorize the business manager to see if he can do the copier deal from
SPC
At the agreed rate.
at the agreed rate that we have seen tonight.
Yep.
If he can, we authorize him to sign. If he cannot get anything but a better interest rate, then yes, we have to bring it back to the boards.
Right. And that sums it up rather eloquently. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor, and with everyone's permission, I'm going to do a roll call because I want to make sure we get done before midnight tonight. So what say you, Molly?
Aye.
What say
Aye.
you, Lynn? What say you, Chris? What say you, Priscilla?
You want to abstain?
Well, I have an abstention from Priscilla. What say you, Cheryl?
Aye.
What say you, Hardy Merrill?
Aye.
What say you, Jim McCullough?
Aye.
All right, is there anybody I've missed? Because there usually is. Apparently not. That's reassuring. All right, so you have been authorized with that caveat. Thank you. All right, what else we got? Committees, if any. There is going to be a discussion with negotiations and with with policy. So I guess this is where we do that.
Maybe.
You want to start us off on policies, what's happened and where we're at?
Well, do you want policy here, or you want it down under business?
Well, let's put it under business. I think that is in fact where we laid it out. So why don't we do that? Thank
What
you.
about update on ESER?
Yep. All right. Very, very good. So we'll move that over to that. Let's see, we have a lot of notes on this page at this point. So why don't we move to new business, and that is on the list of items.
Did you want to do ESER?
Oh, we certainly can. How would you like to proceed with
I
that?
think it's important that Andy update the SU board on what's going on at this point, so that we have it, clear cut and what's out there.
Clear cut, so a lot to ask, but okay.
Okay, sorry, I don't have all the numbers, and so we have been working on the ESER 1 grant, which those monies go away in September. The AOE has set May 31st as a deadline for any amendments. So we are working to make sure that we've spent every one of those dollars. So that has been, we don't want to give any money back to the state or to the federal government on that. So a little bit here to clean up, but I think we're going to capture all of those dollars. And then what we've also been working on is the ARP-ESSER and coming up with conceptual ideas of what, how to spend the money. 20% of the funds, this is the ARP-ESSER is the, or ESSER 3 is the $13 million grant that we were afforded. And 20% of those funds had to be set aside for loss of learning. And so how the committee has looked to really utilize those is with some of the folks you just approved today to really support our teachers and our students to really work on, you know, we're not talking about loss of learning just today and tomorrow, we're talking about loss of learning for years, and we need to really work on that piece. We've also looked at infrastructure projects. I just emailed out to all the boards some stuff on PCPs and when they're looking
PCP.
I don't know what is PCB. What did I say? PCP. I apologize. I read an article on James Brown the other day. I guess that was stuck in my head. So the PCBs and when the state is going to do some testing on that. And the reason I bring that up is because one of the ideas that we were looking at doing was using some funds to help finish the HVAC system here at the high school, which is about a $2 million project. And what was raised at one of the high school board meetings was, you know, you spend the money to fix it, and then they come back and say, you got your PCB levels are too high. And we end up in a Burlington situation where the school building is no longer available.
So because it's been a hot topic in high school, I tried to see what this chart meant on where we were.
We're almost at the end.
Yeah, that's the way I read it.
Yeah, they actually are deeming that this building does not need to be tested until 2024. I believe is when it was in late 2024.
Yeah.
So what we tried to do is look at each one of these projects. What just came out, and I still need to unpack it some more, is they did a facilities audit. They didn't actually come out and look at buildings, but they did the state hired someone to do a facilities audit.
Without looking at the building?
And so I need to unpack it some more. I just got it today. But that piece to drive where some of our, where we can look at doing some of our spending. The other piece that the committee had really talked about was, again, when we look at loss of learning, but when we look at what is the long-term impact that this community is really suffering from, is looking at an early learning center with the potential of a birth through pre-K ability to offer education for students, as I say, birth through pre-K. Currently, right now, we've got, between those ages, almost 36 kids that we are aware of in our community who can't even find space because all the private areas are full. And so the long-term impact of students who do not get early intervention, and Stacy can speak to this. I mean, also we see that impact when we don't do that early intervention with the number of students who get referred to special education. And so the discussion was really about how can we control that? How can we control the curriculum and provide that? Part of that early learning center idea was also a supervisory union or a central office, so kind of bring it all together. We currently pay, the rent is pretty high on the space that we use. It's a great space, but we already have people in our basement.
Right.
Because we're running out of space. So we, to conceptually bring everything together, to bring all those needs together. That idea is currently in a proposal to the AOE under the concept approval phase, which is the first phase.
Right.
So no monies have been allocated, nothing has been done other than, hey, we'd like to do this. What do you think of the idea? And the AOE has been I keep getting questions back and forth because they have said this is the first time any type of this proposal has ever been brought to them under ESSER funds.
Unbelievable.
So we've really been looking at that. So we're looking at how do we fix our heating ventilation systems is a big piece. We've been looking at environmental sensors in our buildings, but also coupling that with the possibility of cameras and entry point systems. Been looking at windows. You can't, the ESSER funds get very tight where you can't just say, we're going to replace all the windows in this building. You can say, you got to really key in that I can replace these 3 windows. So it gets real tricky in that sense. But conceptually, those are where a lot of the ideas are. We set out to the board a link as a reminder to where those ideas live on our website. If you go through all of those ideas that we've been talking about, they equal a lot more than $13 million. It's really getting the big picture of where we want to go. We are scheduling a community meeting at the end of May, where we will bring a lot of these ideas to the community to get feedback, to see if this is even, like these are our ideas and our concepts, but it might be that the community is saying, no, that's not the way to go. And so we want to get that feedback. And so
some of this might actually be stuff to present at the WNESU meetings to get several drafts in Westminster among communities.
Correct. Yes.
There is an Article 9 for these kind of chats if you want to have one. If you want to use some of that time.
Yep.
Time to
okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Some of this, there is a sort of sensitive negotiation / discussion happening with at the federal level for some of that supplemental stuff, and I would rather have that because there is some discomfort with hashing it out in public. I would like to have some of that discussion go into executive session if possible, at least a brief outline of the sensitive part. So I'm going to ask people's permission to defer further discussion of that there. We do the other writing we have that's public is policies, and I do want to do that one, and then I want to talk about negotiations, and then we will slide into executive session with the board's permission at that point.
So, Jack, are you okay? I'm sorry. Are you okay if I just excuse Jim?
Release a prisoner? Yes, I think that would be fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
So we discussed F34, which is the flag, C12, prevention of sexual harassment, C10, prevention of harassment, hazing, bullying, C10P, the procedures for that, C11, student freedom of expression in school-sponsored media. And there was some discussion on that. We need to extend it to other areas of student freedom of expression as well. So we'll look into that. But that's the required policy is the one on media. C14, which is policy on prevention, 504 ADA grievance protocol for students and staff. And I would make a motion to give the board chair the authority to disseminate and warn policies approved by the policy committee for discussion and adoption by the SU after a minimum of 10 days.
So what that means is these policies will be printed. They'll show up on the places where we have to post these guys, as well as on the website, and you will all get copies of them at which you can study at your leisure when we meet for approval. And so this will be disseminated, frankly, to all members of all boards. We're still working out sort of a means of trying to concatenate this process so it's not quite as meeting intensive. Got some ideas about that.
Right.
Will be one of which may be in the future when we do policies to have one big happy family of all boards sit together in a room and just do it.
I'm not sure that will work, Jack, but by doing this, you can eliminate and get down to just the one meeting after it's put out there, because the public can look at them and they can bring it for discussion and adoption.
I think one of the things I'm hoping to do is just have tosses to our legal folks and say, we'd like to, here's two ways we'd like to do it. Which one will pass muster from their perspective, and see what
By
happens.
statute, it has to be approved.
Like I said, I'm pretty confident the lawyers can interpret statutes. At least that has been my hope. So
So
one
that's the
never
motion.
knows.
I'd like to hear that motion again, because I'm struggling with this a little bit. So
I
let's
said
hear
a
that very
motion to
clear.
give the board chair the authority to disseminate and warn policies that were approved by the policy committee for discussion and adoption by the SU after a minimum of 10 days. They have to be warned and posted for at least 10 days. So
I understand
that
that,
the
Brad.
community can see it, and then we'll discuss it at the next meeting after that, or if it's not been 10 days, then it would.
So you're
be-
not gonna bring these to all the boards?
Yes, they have to come to all the boards.
Essentially, this is what I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Priscilla. This is an attempt to get the 10-day posting part done here rather than at individual boards. And that's one of the
Well,
reasons.
My board gave, you know, we
Uh,
did it by consensus at the last one. So as long as it's coming out of policy and each of the board chairs has the right to do that, then we're okay, because then the boards just have to have one meeting to be able to.
As I say, I'm all in favor of what makes the process go faster. I also just want to make sure, since we got tagged on this by, I think, members of the high school board on this item, that we make sure that we have our I's dotted and T's crossed procedurally. I certainly be happy to take this and send it to all board chairs and ask them to post it and see where we go with it. But I do want Andy to have Pietro or whoever take a look at this and say, does this work?
That's why I said by the SU board, Jack.
No, I'm
Because
hearing.
then you have
Yeah.
authority for the SU
I
board. to
do
bring
have
it back.
authority for the SU board, and we'll happily take that. So this is that first reading equivalent, and that's how we'll do it. Everybody comfortable with that?
So I'm asking Pietro.
Asking
exactly, 'cause
Pietro.
He's expensive, and I want to make sure, like,
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm exact in what I
Tell you
ask.
what, you and I
Okay.
will offline, we'll get that.
Great, thank
the
you
wording
very much.
from.
There's a motion on the
Understand
floor, and
what
now
we're
is there discussion?
This would be, what are the numbers of these and titles of these items?
The ones that we did
Wait
yesterday
a minute.
were.
The motion she just gave was not anything to do with those. She just made a blanket motion.
The ones that are approved by the committee could be posted. That doesn't mean you will adopt them, because you have the right as a board
Are
to be
you,
able to decide, discuss, and not, or change them, or do any of those things. But by allowing him to post and disseminate it, then they're out there, it's been posted, they've been warned, and we can look at them at another meeting. Because we have a lot of required policies that have not been.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal, and I'm not speaking in favor of this or against it, because I have views and they're not useful here. What I understand, this is effectively the first reading, even though we're not reading them tonight, that to get them publicly warned, to take statutorily that piece of that first reading, to do it that way is somewhat different language. That's the intent, if I'm interpreting you correctly.
Right, so that they're out there, don't have to have several meetings to be able to get to that.
Well, we'll find out if it works, but that's what the pitch is, correct?
may I speak now?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. So I just heard two things. I heard Priscilla tell us the policies that have been spoken about. And then I heard a motion that felt to me like it was a blanket motion to any time a policy committee decides on a policy, it goes through this process of you posting it for 10 days and then it coming to the boards for approval. That's what I just heard. So I don't like that. I think that the board needs to be able to hear those policies. And so we can post them and we can send them to them, but there's a lot of people, especially on the high school board, who are going to want to at least hear them and be able to have a discussion. And for those of us who have been on a board for a long time, you know, we're used to being able to come back at it the next board meeting to vote on it. So you're taking out that, what we call the first read. So you can tell me what the laws are, you can cite whatever number you want to cite, but I can't sit here without telling you that I think there are some board members that are gonna look for that procedure because it is what they're comfortable with, and they think that you're taking something away from them. And it's a policy, to me, you know, a policy a lot of times is something that has to happen, but also it's something that people need to understand. And I feel like we're trying to railroad it a little bit quicker than maybe is. And I get, no, hey, you're talking, looking at the person who probably has so many meetings and commitments in a week's time that I don't need another one. But we have to do what's right for all members, not for only the members that are on that committee and have already hashed it all out with everybody. There, I got my 2 cents and I'll be quiet now.
Oh, I actually appreciate it. Yes, and I want to make sure people that are remote have a chance to weigh in on this, because this has been actually rather controversial. So go right ahead.
Okay, and there's something, Molly, that says that the high school board can't do it with an extra meeting if they want to do that. The ruling for the way of doing this no longer has a first reading and a second reading and then adoption. It has been changed to just a warning and an adoption. That's the way it is on all of the policies at this point. And so you do have a discussion, because when it comes to the board, and everybody gets to look at it because it's disseminated out to the members of that board, and they get to discuss it at the next meeting. And if they want to put it off and have another meeting, they can, or they can adopt it at that point. It's up to them, but it also gives the community at least 10 days to be able to be looking at it and be able to also weigh in or come to the next board meeting and be able to tell us what they want, if they want it, if they disagree. The policies that we're doing right now are basically ones that are required. Some of them we don't have in our policy manual because it hasn't been updated for so long. And these are required. And if we don't get some of them done in there, we're going to be at fault because we don't have the required policies that we need. We still have about 8 to 10 other policies that we have to cover that are required. We're only doing required policies right now.
Well, the flag thing.
Pardon?
The flag thing is not a required policy,
No,
but it's
required one is not a required
yeah.
one,
Right.
right.
You know, it's fairly clear that, you know, there's been some divergence of opinion on whether this works. But I appreciate the motion, and it's the one on the floor. And if people would like to discuss it, we can all, Molly's made, I think, a good point. Is anybody out there, Cheryl, Teen, Hardy, Jakes, any of you, any comments?
No.
But I do see one from Lynn, so go right ahead, Lynn.
So in the motion, are we saying that we don't bring it to this board and discuss it and pass it before it goes off to the other boards? It's the way we had done it before.
It is out there and disseminated if the chair of that board, you know, can, or, you know, and it's recognized by their board that they can do that. If they want to have a discussion before they do that, before they post it and disseminate, that is up to the individual boards. Because
Okay, well, I'm just talking about this board, so this board will
This
still
board-
pass it
This
like
board,
the
we
others.
discussed it, we have members from all of the, boards
Mhm.
at the policy
Okay,
committee.
so we consider that as being this.
And by just posting it, you are warning it that, you know, we're putting it out there for looking at
Okay.
and adoption. But we would do a discussion before the adoption of them at the individual boards before it was passed.
Okay, so we're not having to bring it back to this SU board and read it and pass it before we disseminate it.
Yes, because it would cut down, you know, having to have another meeting of the board, because the policy committee has already agreed on that. We do it basically by consensus. And by doing that, then we can at least post it, and then it'll be out there for people to look at it. And then bring it back and we can discuss and decide if we want to adopt it.
I want to hear Chris.
God, I hate policies.
Don't we all?
And by the way, I did, many policies were revised during my time.
I did them with you, I think.
And
Did a lot of them.
so
But-
did I, as you remember.
So thinking kind of through how this would work. I see a couple of problems, and one is Molly has already
Articulated very well.
articulated that very well. The other one is, so if a policy comes to a board and people have objections to it, and I realize a lot of them are just boilerplate things from the state, but every once in a while there's one that people have a debate about. Well, it's not just gonna be the next meeting, right? It's gonna have to be rewritten, taken back, reposted. So in some ways, for those kinds of policies, maybe you're even lengthening the process compared to just having a first read and warning for adoption, where at least you could, the boards had, as you know, we had a shot to, sometimes we wordsmith the policy, sometimes we'd add, and then that would be what we bring forward to the next meeting. So it actually was fairly efficient when a policy was going to be revised. In the cases where you're not, it's more efficient to do what you're saying, but I also feel, just from having a few of these come to Rockingham, it's like I kind of felt some pressure just to pass them, even though I had read through them and they were really boilerplate policies. They all came from the state.
But you understood that. There's
Yeah.
other people on your board that may not have.
Well, let me just express, Priscilla and I have had exchanges about this because we're all looking for the same thing, which is to make the process more rational and streamlined. The issue, here are the goals. What are we trying to accomplish? We're trying to accomplish not spending cycles, especially for boilerplate stuff. The key objective is we want all boards, whenever humanly possible, to adopt word for word word for word identical policies. How do we make that happen? Well, hear me out. This is the discussion we have had. Does it make more sense to get that slugged out at this board, at a convention of all boards together, so we just do it at once, not have to beat it up, or to use Priscilla's preferred model? I'll be happy with whichever one of these everyone feels good about and is legal. That's the only requirement I have, as I want to make sure that we can do it and that people feel comfortable with it. Because as you said, the last thing we want to have is have this posted and have everybody at every different board want to change a different paragraph because that makes his job crazy.
Rarely the case.
Huh?
It's rarely the case, but yes.
I mean, I remember the gun policy was one thing that ended up being a huge thing during your tenure. So Priscilla has outlined her recommended protocol for doing this. And that is the motion on the floor. So we can approve that motion, and if it fails, we can come up with a different process, or we can accept a motion and we'll be done with this for the evening. So are there any further questions or comments from colleagues?
I just have one more question. Is this motion only for the policies that she is talking about?
It would appear that way.
Feels like there was two things going on there.
Yeah.
Feels like she talked about some policies, and then a motion was made on how we were going to handle policies.
But I agree that there were effectively two pieces of her recommendation. So one is,
what's the policy on the floor right now?
why don't you repeat your proposal?
The motion was to give the board chair the authority to disseminate and warn policies approved by the policy committee for discussion and adoption by the SU after a minimum of 10 days.
So those policies that you spoke about have been approved at the policy committee?
Yes.
So
The
you're
ones
talking
that
about
the ones that I talked about were already approved, yes. We have some others that will, that are required policies that we'll need to do in the next month. And do that also. The problem is that our policies are so far behind that they totally needed a revamping. And right now, we still are working on required policies. There are some that we've put in there. In addition to that, for example, we had a couple that are recommended ones, but that Andy needed in order to service the grants.
We are at 8:27. I just want to clarify. We're turning the lights off at 9 o'clock.
I mean, it just
in case anyone's curious. So the question.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is it possible that there could be a different protocol for policies that are required rather than policies that are not required? So maybe there's the recommendation that Priscilla made for when it's a required policy, so that can be expedited because it has to happen. But then there's a different protocol around policies that are not required. For example, the flag policy.
Because the issue about A, whether it's legal, and B, whether boards are going to want to futz with them and trying to avoid that is still the question of the hour. Go ahead. Yes, Andy.
Thinking of time and whatnot, and if we're going to need to query legal counsel on this.
Should we defer and get that done and then come back?
I can't, table a motion or anything like that, but
But
would that be
a motion to,
would that be wise, just given if we go through a motion, then we find out we can't do it, then are we going to be back here again?
I think I'd entertain a motion to table until the next meeting, because let's find out what we can do first.
Before we do that, though, I mean, we are only authorizing the chair to put it out there. We are not adopting it. We are not doing anything else.
I appreciate all that, but I have a privileged motion on the floor to table until we have referred this to legal counsel for guidance as procedurally. And that is a motion that is not, I don't think we debate those. So Cheryl, what say you to this motion to table?
Yes, table.
Hardy, what say you to this motion?
Yes.
Jiggs, what say you?
Yes.
Lynn, what say you?
I'm gonna abstain. I'm confused.
That's fair enough. Chris?
Yes.
Priscilla?
No.
All right, we have a Molly, did I?
Yes.
Sorry. Not
Okay,
good, but
then
my
Jack,
spatial skills are not.
In that case, we need to warn the F-34, the C-12, the C-10, C-10P, C-11, and C-14 that have already been.
All right, and can you just again
Those are
articulate?
the flag, the prevention sexual harassment, the prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying, the procedures for the prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying, C-11, the student freedom of expression in school sponsored media, and C-14, the policy on prevention, 504 ADA grievance protocol for students and staff.
Would you, I think that most people will trust that all these mandatory ones are, can you just give us a 1 sentence characterization of those, and then perhaps well, James, what would you prefer we do?
I think we just
tabled this. We just tabled this. Okay, so come on.
I think we tabled the protocol that that Priscilla had offered, and not I'm.
So does she say this? We got to post these? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's just we're just wasting.
So that we can go ahead.
Priscilla, with all due respect, it is 8:31, and I think that Jiggs's point that we will survive 2 weeks between now and then.
No, because then it's a whole month, Jack, and these are required policies, and we do not have some of these policies at all, even in our manuals. So we do need to warn these. And that is part of the SU board. The SU board, we need to warn these.
We have your motion, your new motion
is
on
to
the
warn
floor.
those policies.
We have Priscilla's new motion on the floor. We can simply, if anybody wants her to read them, we will. If she doesn't, I'll just simply state the flag thing is the business that it's just the federal and the state flag are the only ones, and it's that whole business of a public forum that's been in the papers and in the Supreme Court. So those are them. If anybody wants more detail, speak now, and otherwise we will move on your motion, Priscilla.
They would be put out there, they would be posted, and every member would get those so that they could look at those.
Well, this is that classic approved for posting,
right.
And that's what we're doing.
Warn for adoption.
Warn, yes,
Yeah,
and warn for adoption at the next meeting.
Basically the same thing that she just said. She reworded it.
Well, no, but just it's warning for. This is the classic first reading. This is her version of the classic first reading, Molly.
This is just to be done within the SU, right?
Yeah, at the SUO, right. So there we go. Any further questions on this? If not, I'm going to call the question because I'm tired. Chris.
Yes.
Gwen.
Yes.
Molly.
No.
Molly's a no. Cheryl Charles.
Yes.
Hardy Merrill.
Yes.
James McCullough.
Yes.
So we have one of these for
Yes.
Adoption facility. Yes, there we go. So done. The rest of this meeting is a matter of it's going to be a matter of information. I do not believe that there will be any votes coming out of that meeting. Therefore,
Jack.
Yes.
I do apologize. Just we have the special ed piece. I mean, unless we.
The special ed, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I completely
Yes.
forgot about it. My apologies. I thought you were just staying here because you're so interested in flag policies. Sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
So Nicole and Andy, I believe, sent everyone the Agency of Education's Special Education Procedures and Policy Manual. LEAs are required through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act to have to adopt a model procedure and policy to implement special education procedures. The AOE developed a manual for us. The recommendation from them is to adopt this. We do have the option to create our own, but if we do that, it does need to go before our legal team and be approved by them, and then it needs to go to the Agency of Education and be approved by them. Basically, it's our special education guide. This is our rules and regulations put into a smaller document.
Okay.
That's basically what it is. It's everything we already do, everything we're held accountable for. It's just something that you agree legally that you will adopt, and you will follow these procedures and policies.
This is not something necessarily needs to be run through policy committee for 2 readings and blah, blah, blah.
Nope.
Are you sure?
Yep. I am. I have the email to prove it.
Okay.
Yes, and they do ask that we post it on our website after it is assigned and adopted. It's an addendum to the special education policy that we already have.
Is this that long monstrous thing we were talked about in policy
We
committee?
were, and then they decided to do it for us, which was great.
Bless their little hearts.
Yes.
All right.
So we have to follow the same procedures as their policies.
Moved.
Got it.
Allow you to.
To adopt.
All right, so there we go. Yeah, I got a motion to do whatever it is we need to do from Jim McCullough.
I can give you the wording.
And then adopt them like it's.
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering
This isn't a
initially. It
policy,
seems
it's
like.
just a
These are the
procedure.
procedures.
It's a procedure, yeah.
It's not
So-
policy.
And
Okay.
also reading the bit from the AOE, with the motion, we should authorize the administration to update and revise them as required over time.
Which would be what you do with the procedures, so that makes sense.
But we should be specific about that in the motion. Because these are, these legal things, and
They are
every
legal
once in a
things.
while they say, oh, well, that was a mistake, we'll do this instead.
Then-
And we don't want to have to come back to the board every time.
Jim, will you take that as a friendly amendment from your
No,
colleague?
I meant to include those.
I absolutely knew you did, Jim.
And
All right,
The other language they are asking that you use when you do adopt it is as is.
as is. So,
Which I know is your favorite.
so for the record, I heard Chris Kibbe use the words as is, as did Jim McCullough. All right, so there we go. Any discussion of this? And there,
Just a question.
absolutely go for
So
it.
we're adopting them as is with updates, or we're adopting them just as is?
As is, and
Required to
authorizing the administration
To amend as required.
amend them from time to time as required.
There it is. Boy, we're good, aren't we? All right. Again, roll call. Molly, what say you? All right. Lynn, what say you?
Yes.
Chris, what
Yes.
say you? Priscilla, what say you? Hardy, what say you?
Yes, yes.
Carol, what say you? James,
Yes.
what say you? There we go. Done. Oh, you can hang out more if you
I
get
no.
sort.
Thank you.
You're missing even the fun stuff. All right. So thanks for hanging in with us, and I'm sorry we didn't do this in a little
No,
bit
that's
earlier
okay. It's
order.
not-
All right. I really am concerned about 8:38. So everything else we have involves negotiations and the sensitive matter relative to planning and the feds. So I'm going to entertain a motion to go into executive session. I promise it'll be brief.
Yes.
The brief part in particular, Jim?
Move to go into executive session for reasons that are very important.
Yeah.
David Clark would
Or something like that.
He's not here. All right. So without objection,
It doesn't work.
I hear us going into executive session.
Because it would place the board at a disadvantage to have.
What he said.
That's exactly what I meant. That's exactly what.
All right. Thank you.
Immature knowledge by the public.
Place the public.
I'm just going to wave a piece of paper.
How's that
over
written
here.
out as well?
You're gonna have a
Right,
piece
you
of
would
paper.
need to know
Have that
what
written
we
out
need to have
before.
listed what we're going in there for. You can't just.
We're going in to discuss a negotiations matter and a legal matter. So there we are. We
And we invite
the administration to participate as they prefer. So, and board members who are not necessarily members of this, voting members of this board. So there, that covers it all. That was, we're in public session. Priscilla has given her director's comment, going around the horn. Chris?
So Emily Kornheiser reversed herself in the House Ways and Means Committee, and they passed the version of the bill that we want. I know that the Senate's version, which is for the equalized pupil, weighted pupils,
And
not a block grant.
I'm sure the threat to primary here had nothing to do with it. Thank God Almighty.
Well, you know, I want to be fair. I wrote to her and she said, "Look, I haven't made a decision." And then a few days later, but in any case, it's still not signed. The House and the Senate have to reconcile, and the governor has to sign. So you have to pay attention to that. But the good news is, I think for all of our districts, tax rates are at least level and maybe could go down.
Yeah, updraft might actually take a nice, small dip.
So, and I think the thing to remember is this isn't a 1-year tax hike or drop. It's a forever one. So that was what, in part, why it was important. So we'll see this week, I guess, because they're still.
Thank you. Lynn?
No comment.
Molly?
I'm all set, thank you.
Cheryl?
Nothing more from me tonight. Thank you very much.
Marty?
Good news from Chris.
Indeed. Chicks?
I'm going to defer my comments, but I will say that I expressed at the Rockingham meeting the other day very serious concerns about the lack of communication that I, as a board member, since last October until now, have received. We got hit with a couple of things on Monday that were something that was information was available sooner, and it was dumped on us. The whole ESSER communication. We got a memo today from Andy, which I appreciate and I read, but this board member is concerned. We got a serious issue with communication, and I think it's incumbent on our board chairs and particularly our superintendent to address it. So thank you.
Thank you. So noted. I'll just say that I'm going to be sending a proposal around about public comment to both that I've seen as a model used elsewhere that obliges us to do more than just sit, to have public comment in many places, have a process where we listen to it, but also make sure that things can be referred to committees if there are items that should be placed on agendas, and I'll be circulating that around. And we are going to, this I hope will be the last 2.5-hour meeting that we have during my tenure. And that means they're going to be shorter, not longer. And in case anyone was curious. So with that, thank you all for your patience. We got a lot we went through tonight, and thank you again. I'm entertaining a motion to adjourn.
So moved.